What's up, everybody? Back again on the show, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Hell of a show today. I have very much enjoyed this. Three 15-minute parts on 32 picks in 32 days. Dedicate each podcast, topic 15 minutes to each one. It's just broken up better for me, more organized. I like that flow of it better. And for people that are not fans of MMA, they can pick and choose which topics they want to hear me talk about. So this is an MMA episode of the podcast for all the MMA fans out there that listen to this podcast. I really, love you guys and gals. Everybody knows that MMA is a huge part of my life, covering it and watching it and just loving the sport. I've been a huge fan of the sport for so long. Watching the 25 greatest UFC fights show that was on FS1, I remember where I was for almost all those fights, and it was fantastic. Even the ones that were, in the 90s and in the early 2000s, Chuck and Tito and things like that. So this is a fantastic sport. I love combat sports. I'm going to have a bunch of guests on in the combat sports world within the next few weeks, within the next few months, I should say, and I'm very excited about that. So back again on the podcast to talk some UFC, and I previewed the main event of UFC 223, which takes place April 7th. Actually, I believe, April 7th. Pretty sure it's April 7th on pay-per-view. And Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov are going to be fighting for the interim, maybe lineal title, lightweight title. Not too sure on that. I don't even think Dana White is. He says as the first punch is thrown, Conor McGregor will be stripped. So I guess we'll see what happens. Dana White says we'll see what happens. He says certain things, and who knows? We'll wait and see. But the best fight on the card, in my opinion, is not the main event. The best fight on the card is Rose Namajunas versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, a rematch that the original first fight took place UFC 217, which I think is the greatest UFC card ever. UFC in Madison Square Garden, return to GSP, 3 title fights happened, and every challenger won the title. TJ Dillashaw beat Garbrandt, GSP beat Bisping. And the first title fight that took place that night was Joanna Jędrzejczyk putting her belt on the line versus Rose Namajunas. And most, not me, believe it or not, and I will boast about this, not me, most thought that Joanna would win. And I was telling people this fight is going to be a lot better than what people think. This is not going to be a Joanna Jędrzejczyk slaughter like ones of previous, fights of previous, past fights of years past with Joanna, but I thought Rose would hang tough in there. I thought she would do her thing, try to take it to the ground, and win. I really gave her a fair shot at winning that fight. I've watched Rose for a long time. She was actually at an MMA event that I was at in upstate New York with Pat Barry. Didn't get the chance to meet her, but would have loved to have met her. I'm a huge fan of hers. Thug Rose is fantastic, and I was so happy for her that she won the women's strawweight title, or flyweight title. I always get those two confused. But all in all, I really think that she is a fantastic representation of the sport, what her message is, and just be a better person and things like that. I really enjoy that. And she went in there and just completely did her thing. And her fight with, she's a strawweight champ. I don't know why I said flyweight. I knew it was strawweight. Strawweight, 115. Her fight with Joanna was everything that I didn't think it would be. As I said, I thought she would take Joanna to the ground. Thought she'd beat her up from there. She dropped her, I think, 3 times, twice, once with a left hook, once with a right hook, once with a left hook, and then again with a left hook. Her boxing was out of this world against Joanna, and she predicted that. She went through all this verbal assault, from the first fight. She went through all this verbal, bashing from Joanna, and she was able to combat that in the octagon, and win. And it was so awesome. One of my favorite fights probably ever. And I really am excited for this rematch. Joanna getting this immediate rematch is not really a surprise to me. She defended her title multiple times. I believe 5 or 6 times. I think it was 6 times. And for her to get this immediate rematch, not much of a shock. What is a shock is that it's somewhat so soon. The last fight was in November. This fight's in April. So soon, the immediate rematch is immediate, obviously, but if this was a year after the fact, there would be a little bit more story to play up, but being that it was so soon, there's story to play up, but it's not as much, I guess, if that makes any sense. If this rematch was within a year, you'd have a full year of build-up, where now you have, 5 months of build-up. So, I think the fight will sell well, no doubt about it. I think the fight will be highly entertaining and heavily watched by MMA fans around the world. And, Joanna has to change some things. I thought in the first fight she was very stiff, very tense, didn't really show a lot of movement, and was very hesitant to throw punches, whereas Rose was very loose. She was moving her head. She was countering really well. She just seemed like she had everything to gain and nothing to lose, and Joanna fought as if she had everything to lose. And now she has even more to lose, because if Joanna beats Rose in this next fight on April 7th, Joanna will have to give Rose an immediate rematch. It's only fair. Rose gave her an immediate rematch. Joanna will have to give her an immediate rematch. And we'll get a trilogy. If Rose beats Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Joanna loses 2 straight fights to the same opponent, her days at the strawweight division are pretty much done as long as Rose is the champion. And I think Rose would be the champion for a long time if she's able to get through Joanna, especially if she knocks her out again. She's the legit of women's MMA. I mean, she'd be the face of women's MMA. I think she already should be, but she would definitely become the face of women's MMA if she knocks out Joanna twice. She would become an all-time great. She would become the face of women's MMA, and she would probably surpass anything that Ronda Rousey did in the cage, or Joanna. So, and I know Joanna had the 6 title defenses and Rousey had the 5, but if you knock out Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the believed pound-for-pound best woman on the planet outside of Cyborg, you're right there. I think Rose is a fresh, young face that I've always I can't remember who I told. One of the managers, I was like, she is gorgeous. I think she's adorable. And I think that helps her drawing power. She's got this G.I. Jane thing about her that makes her this huge draw. And I think that she could be such a huge star in this sport with her personality, with her fighting style. She's great. So, there's a little bit of bias in there. I have a little bit of a crush on her, not to make too much of a joke out of that, but Pat Barry would whoop my butt. But, she definitely, she's just a badass. And I think that she should be heavily favored in this fight because there's no reason for her not to be. We saw how the first one took place. We saw how she was able to just dissect Joanna and drop her on multiple occasions. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Joanna tapped to strikes, which that definitely needs to be thrown in there. And the fact that Rose was willing to give her this shot right away. I mean, she could have said, no, I just beat her, I'll fight someone else. She said, no, I'll beat her again. That is unprecedented. So I'm going with Rose in this rematch. I think that she has what it takes to win this fight. I think it's a good matchup for her. There's sometimes in fighting where one fighter is just a bad matchup for another. You have Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson. You have Holly versus Ronda. You have Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman. You have certain matchups on certain nights where a fighter can get exposed. And, I'd even say Alexander Gustafsson versus John Jones. I thought Gustafsson won that fight. And that was a bad matchup for John Jones. We didn't know it until it happened, but there were dynamics of that fight that Gustafsson was better than John Jones. I think he is better than John Jones in certain aspects of the fight game. So styles make fights, and this is a very entertaining fight. This is a fight that I am definitely getting my popcorn ready for this one. And I think that every MMA fan should be excited for this fight. This is a big, big fight, whether it's women's MMA, whether it's men's MMA, just for MMA in general. This is a big one. So I'm going with Rose in the rematch versus Joanna. I went with Khabib in the main event. For those of you that didn't tune into that, you can tune into that on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, Facebook, YouTube, or Spreaker channel. Also, follow me on Twitter, @Thomas Takeover. Very excited to have some guests on the show in the coming weeks, in the coming months, and you will all enjoy it, I guarantee it. So I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take. Take care.